How's it going, guys? And welcome to another session of the Let's Talk Show by Interlingua. As usual, I am your host, Mike Ruiz, and today we have a very interesting topic to cover, which is feminism. Not only one of the most talked about topics today, but also a lot of information has come out, not only recently, but apparently there has been a lot that we have ignored about it. So I am fully aware that also in the Let's Talk audience, we have a lot of women, a lot of girls. So be sure to participate in the comment section to give your insights about the matter. What do you think? And why not also share your experiences as a woman in this society, in this world. We have a lot to cover, so let's bring the guests already. All of them have their different information on the matter. All of them have been involved in different fields, mostly that involves mostly women participation. Let's find out what they have to say and what they have to cover. Let's bring out Saskia and Fernanda. How you doing, girls?
Hi. Hi, Mike.
How's it going?
Doing great.
Okay. First of all, girls, do you consider yourselves to be feminists? Fer.
Yes, of course, I do.
All right.
That's the easy answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I do consider myself a feminist because I do believe in equity for women, which is not the same as equality, and also like striving to make the world a better place for us.
Saskia, do you consider yourself to be a feminist? If so, why?
Yes, I do consider myself a feminist. I also believe in equity. I think everybody should have the right to equity or justice. It's not, I think feminism is not just for women. It's for women and men. We all have the right to everything, to be considered the same, and to be helped to have the same possibilities. And that's, I think, what equity is about. So I think, well, that's why I'm a feminist.
How do you guys execute feminism in your regular lives, in your everyday lives? Fer.
So from my part, I think I try to do little things every single day. For example, like one of the most relevant things that I think I do is championing other girls, like backing them up, being there for support as much as I can. And that's like friends, that's people like from my university. I back them up. I try to back them up a lot. For my sister, for my cousin, she's turning 18, and oh my god, I am not worried. Like she's going to live in a reality that's very hard, and I want her to be supported because most of us we have that, like growing up, So trying to champion other women, I think, is my main rule. That's my goal. And from the other side, I think I am very academic, and we have talked about it in this same show. So from academia, I also try to like establish the role of women because I think it's also important. It has been dominated by men for so long, and it is important for our voices to be heard and our perspectives to be there, And yeah, that's what I'm working on. Again, small steps, but I hope they do contribute and have an impact on the people that I work with. And what I try to do is find those tiny or maybe big things we do in our day-to-day lives that are not feminist, Sometimes I like laugh at jokes that somebody makes, and then I figure out like I shouldn't be laughing at this. This is like harmful for women. So I every day try to be more conscious of what I'm saying, what I'm doing, my activities, and other people's activities, and I try to change them when I figure out that something is not feminist or that I'm discriminating in a certain way. And I try to share my opinion as much as possible, and I try to help expanding my idea of feminism and showing people that feminism is helpful for men and women, and it's not just women hating men. On the contrary, it's looking for equity for both of us. So I try with my friends and with my colleagues, just maybe not only not laugh at jokes, and even if it sounds a bit boring, like even explain why sometimes that's harmful or you shouldn't do those activities. And I also try to read a bit about feminism and get informed, so I know how to maybe discuss or have fundamented information to share why it is important for us to be, or for us to look for this equity in the sexes or in the genders. And I think that's what I try to do. It's not much, but little steps help, I guess. I hope. Yeah, and like you said, like if we're all trying to do like or take little steps, then they build up, and hopefully they have a bigger impact.
Fair. You were telling me earlier on that this year you had your first. It gets fuzzy when I say it out loud because you'll know what I mean. You had your first march of the 8th of March. I wonder if that was thought in advance. It has a good rhyme. You were involved in your first one ever. How was that experience for you? What happened?
In one word, amazing, heartwarming. Because we usually see like the bad side of it, like on the news, you know, the aftermath and people complaining about it. But this time I actually got to live it. I never did before because right now I'm in Hidalgo, but the previous years I was in university in Mexico City, and I had very bad anxiety. So like crowds make me like feel very bad, and I never thought about going because it gets very crowdy in Mexico City, you know, like for everything at all. And I didn't even plan to go this year. But one friend like sent me a message, and she was like, "Hey, are you going to the march here in the city?" And I was like, I don't know. Like I was thinking about it, but maybe not. And she was like, "Oh, I really wanted to go, but I don't actually have someone to go with, and I've never been to one." And it struck a chord in me. Like it meant a lot that she asked me, because this friend of mine is a trans girl, and her like wanting to go and like having the confidence on asking me to go with her, like it really touched my heart, and I couldn't say no to her, you know, like I really couldn't. And I got on board with her. Like my sister wanted to go as well, so she's younger than me. She's 16, I think 17. It was her birthday recently. So she's 17, and it was this friend of mine, me and my sister, and I also got another friend to tag along. The only person in common they had was me, but they got to make friends real quick. Because it was our first march, we actually joined a group for first timers. And before we started, they made sure we understand like the safety rules and also like why we were marching, you know, like the whole point of it. Which is to like show that we were not like okay with what's happening, that we were, you know, like it's not easy living as a woman in Mexico, and that's why we marched, like to demand for justice and for safety for all of us. I have like joint feelings about it. Like, on one side, I really want to go, but on the other side, when I talk to people that are in favor of the march, it sounds incredible. And when I talk to people that are not like in favor of the march, and those are the people like, we have to convince or we have to show why it is important. I think the march just makes them feel more insecure and more in favor of what they're feeling. So they hate the movement even more. And that like confuses me, because I think it's helping people that already know that this change needs to happen. And it makes you feel united, and it shows you that you're not the only one. But on the other hand, instead of helping the movement, I think it's not. But I really would like to help the movement. And I think it's an excellent way of doing it, because I don't know any other way of doing it, or any other way of showing discomfort. But that's why I don't know if I should go or not. I'm like, that's why I haven't.
Actually,
yeah, and that's something I wanted to like elaborate upon, or, like regarding Saskia, you should go, because like before we all have this like notion about it that we end up with like destroyed property and like everything, like something always happens every year, you know?
Yeah.
Then I think a way to like take that band off your eyes is to actually be there, because it's like, from my perspective, what I experienced for the first time this year, it's totally different, you know? Yes, there are people who go and damage property, like private property or stuff like that. But what they told us and what we saw, it's like, you know, they are usually paid people, you know, people they pay to cause a ruckus and make everyone like look bad. So they told us, like, just ignore them, don't like interact with them, don't tell them like, hey, stop doing that, because they're not there like on their own volition, like they're there just to create chaos. And I think you should definitely go, because like Mike saw it as an outsider, but being actually there, yes, like what I got from being there is there is a sense of community. Yes, there is discomfort from everyone, but being there, you realize that if anything happened to you, like all those women you're surrounded by will do everything in their power for you to find justice, for you to be like remembered, you know. And seeing all the signs and the photos and hearing everyone chanting, like it was an amazing experience. Like afterwards, we ended up we ended up leaving a bit early because we were all very tired. But we sat down, we had a slice of pizza, and we were talking about it, and everyone was just like so thankful. Like we were very thankful with each other, like for being there, supporting like one another. And I would definitely do it again next year. And I want to bring in more people with me, because it was an amazing experience. Like it was definitely just like, I couldn't realize how great it would feel. That's the best part. Like being actually there is completely different. You talked about all the damage to like different to stores and to different things that people like write on or spray on or break. And I'm not in favor of that. I'm not defending it. But if you think about it, they're breaking property. But the society is like actually breaking and making us disappear. So if you compare, there is no comparison. So I don't think that's a reason not to go. I think I'm not in favor of it again, but you can't compare that.
I would like to talk about something that I was texting about with Saskia earlier on. And I think this is pretty important, because this creates a lot of division among people. And I'm talking about how a single word like feminism, therefore a feminist, has many interpretations among a lot of folks, among a lot of people. Why do you think that happens, based on your experience, Saskia?
Well, I think it happens because in philosophy, there are many definitions for every word. And it's something very important and very interesting because every philosopher defines things differently. And though there are postures and people like going against that. So, of course, there are many definitions. But I think many are very similar. But people don't maybe look for the definitions, or maybe don't study exactly what a word means, or where it comes from, or what people think about it. And they just interpret whatever they want from their daily life. So I think that's where the difference comes from. And I think it's very important when you're talking, especially about feminism, to make sure you're talking about the same thing. Like for me, and as Fer said, it's looking for equity between genders and looking just for justice, and for there not to be a differentiation and not to be discriminated for the gender you are born in or you turn to. And for many people, I think it's not that. I know many guys, like especially my boyfriend, that when he thinks about feminism, he thinks about like what we were talking, like the destruction the march causes. They think about those quotes that they have in the government, like you have to have 30% of females or 50% of females in the government. Or they think about new laws that have passed again, like for believing women when they say they've been raped, or when they say things have happened to them, which I think are very important, and historically they're very important, but they can be misjudged and they can be misinterpreted, and people can use them to their advantage. So it's just really important to make emphasis and understand the word and explain the word. And when you're talking about it, like try to see if the other person is talking about the same thing, because many times they're not. And that's very, very interesting. I was like so stressed or angry with myself because I love my boyfriend a lot, and I have so much fun with most of my guy friends because I'm in math and technology, and most of the people there are guys. So I really like hanging out with them. But then you talk about feminism and they're all against it, and they literally put a face like, yikes. And I felt so bad because it's, how can I hang out with them if they're against something I believe so strongly in? And then you talk to them and you find out they are feminists. They just don't like the word because they associate it with other things, like very extreme feminists, or very, I don't know, kind of some people that kind of use these new laws that are helping women, but they use them to their advantage and they just abuse them. And that's not what feminism is about. For me, at least.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Which leads me to something that Fer actually worked on, which is some sort of like, how can I put this? Situations that women deal on an everyday basis. That's what, if I, and I quote, that's what your thesis was about: the emotional responses of women, men, and news accounts on feminist discourse over Twitter. That was your thesis, Fer. Could you give me a little bit of insight of what is it that you are dealing with here to all of our viewers, please?
Yeah, of course. So like Saskia was saying, sometimes when you bring up the word feminist or the feminist movement with people around you, they react negatively because they have different associations of what that word means, you know? And I saw this a lot on social media. Like, no matter what it was about, like the article or the post, if it had the word feminism on it, there were a lot of comments, mostly from men, like saying like, "Oh, this is garbage," or "Stop crying."
Yeah.
Like they don't even read what it's about, and they already have this emotional reaction to it because we have these associations to different concepts of what feminism means. And I wanted to see how this happened over on Twitter. Funny, I had never used Twitter before other than for getting concert tickets. But like was like, hey, this is like the most political social media, so I might as well like check on how it works here. And yeah, I was expecting like for women to post things about feminism or to react to this topic positively and to have like this kind of opposition from men. But what I found was not that. And that is, I think, the most important part. Because like the tweets that were like from, for example, from men were also very supporting of the feminist movement. I analyzed tweets with the hashtag ni una menos. So like there were like positive emotional responses to this, like, or in support from women as well. There were only like 2 of them who kind of downplayed the feminist movement. And for news too, which I thought was funny because news are supposed to be pretty like cold and objective, but they also had this in the discourse, this emotional response to it. And I was like, why do I not find like negative tweets from men? And what we found out, is that because you are using a hashtag, you know, that it's basically a filter for the content that you consume and that you post. And you wouldn't use a hashtag that you don't really care about, because hashtags are all about creating community. So using this hashtag ni una menos means that you care about the topic or that you feel strongly about it. And that was quite nice, like to see that yes, we also find support through social media, and these little tools that we use every day have a lot of weight on how we interact with other people in the internet.
Speaking about also what you ladies have a specialty in and also interests, Saskia, you earlier on, we were also talking about certain unpleasant atmosphere and situations that women, with all that's happened, with all the progress that women have achieved, still deal in the, more specifically, science fields. Could you tell me a little bit more of that? What have you found out about it?
Well, I know a little bit more about math and computer science because that's like what I studied and work in. I think for biology, it's very different because it's mainly girls. But in math and computer science, it's mainly guys. And even though nobody prohibits you from entering the field and they don't like literally stop you, you can do it. And it's really cool to work in those areas. There is a big discrimination in some ways. You're expected to be a certain way. You're, for example, expected to be feminine without being too feminine. Like, you can dress with dresses if you want, but then you shouldn't like put too much makeup on because that's like too feminine. So then that shows that you're like not intelligent enough. It's just like they make you feel you have to lose your femininity a bit if you want to be respected. And you have to learn some masculine traits, like to speak like a man in some ways, or like at least in Mexico, like to learn how to say, I don't know the word in English, like albures or speaking double sense.
Yeah.
So you can defend yourself, and you're expected to do really well, because if not, and even if you do really well, they'll just say, oh, it's because you're a woman, or it's because you're pretty, and it doesn't matter how hard you really work, because you're pretty or you're a woman, and that's why you got to where you are. So that feels really awful. And a small example of how we're not taken into account or in the same way, for example, is there are tons of different congresses, so places to speak and talk about your projects. And in the university where I studied my master's, there was just one from women, for women, to women. And in this university, every time there are these kinds of talks, they have like lunch breaks, and you get like your coffee breaks, and they have a lot of like cookies and coffee and delicious food. So everybody can mingle, and you can talk with other people about your investigations, and it really helps you like to make contacts. So in this particular speech, they gave no funding. Like, oh, it's for women? That doesn't really matter. So no funding, or the funding is minimal. And then one of the speakers was a mother. So she couldn't find anybody to take care of her daughter, and she really wanted to give the talk. And they said, can I take her to the university? She'll be sitting down. I promise she won't talk. And it was super hard to convince the university to let the little girl be in the talk. So how can you expect like people or women to be in the area if you don't respect or understand that maybe they have kids? And for example, there were some very interesting talks, like people or investigators spoke about their projects, their mathematical projects, or their computation projects, but also about their difficulties. And it was very interesting to learn that these persons who have doctorates, who have worked so much time in the areas, who are really respected, had never spoken out loud of their difficulties. So they had never said how difficult it was, for example, for some of them to not have children, even if they wanted to, because if they had children, they couldn't have gotten to be the person they are in the academia. And for other women, it was difficult because they didn't want kids, but nobody understood that. So the family didn't validate them as women because they didn't have kids. And it's just so interesting that all these women have these different experiences, and they don't even talk about it, because if you're a woman, you're supposed to be very full of feelings and just guide yourself with that. And then if you're a woman in science, you should not, because you got to be more manly. So you have to put your feelings aside and forget about everything and just be like super close to feelings and as manly as you can. So it's really interesting. And then you got teachers who have comments like, even if you're a woman, you can do this. So it just gives you an idea of how it is to study those areas.
It gives me an idea, and it also gives me a lot to think about and a lot to keep asking, ladies. However, our time is almost up, and I thank you for everything that you have shared. It has been interesting, it has been heavy, and it has been necessary. But let's just close with a bang right now, because I also prefer something to light the mood a little bit for a grand closure. And it is the now traditional rapid fire round. So, number 1, biggest female influence. Saskia.
Amateur. Fair can go first. Oh my god, this is very specific, very niche. Her name is Sheila Kerat. She's a researcher in Spain who opened the only oh my god, what's the name? Lab, like forensic linguistics lab, which is like what I'm going to study in Spain. And at the beginning, it was just like women working on it. So like she created this space for women to like advancing their careers, and I love her for it.
What is a social cause that involves women you would like to support tremendously? I like that word. Saskia?
I don't know a specific cause, but I just think feminism in general, like just being treated equally, like why would we have to be different? Yeah.
All right. Would you say something like that as well, Fer?
For me, going a bit more specific would be education for girls, women, especially like higher levels, because like statistics say that women don't get to reach like higher levels of education. So like is somehow creating a system that allows them to, I think would be amazing.
Okay. Now, maybe you answered this with the first question, maybe you haven't. But if you could talk to a maybe historical female figure or a current influential female figure, who would that be for you to talk, and what would you talk about, Saskia?
Maybe Jane Austen, because I love her books. And she did such a great work, like, with no place for her own. Like, she had to work when people came and visit her, and she had to attend to those people, and that's just so hard. And she has so much sarcasm and so much feminism in her that's like it's really hidden. So I don't know if it's like she really meant it or it's just what she was thinking in the moment. So I think her.
Fair.
All of the women at NASA, like throughout history, because I love space, and I think that's an area that was heavily male-dominated on the outside, but the whole system was like supported by women, and usually they go unnamed. So like if I could like gather them all in one room and talk to them about their experiences, like would be delighted.
Both were really cool picks, if I may add. Wow. And finally, and maybe this one is a little deep, but that's why it's the last question.
Yeah.
Right or achievement that women have acquired throughout history that has a deep presence in you, Saskia?
I think the right to study, to go to universities. I don't know who or what I would be doing if I hadn't been able to go to the universities to study, to work. It's just so important.
Fair.
On the other hand, yes, the right to work and be paid for your labor, because like right away I can think of like, for example, the medical field. It's not the same. Historically, it hasn't been the same to be like treated by a male doctor than a female doctor. There's more support. Like also, for example, in law, there's a lot of like work fields that only because there are women in it, they make the lives of other women better, you know?
And for our viewers, that's it for from us this week. Be sure to tune in on a weekly basis for more of the Let's Talk show. Fer was with us, Saskia was with us, Eric Rios was in charge of the controls, Poncho was in charge of the editing. I am Mike. Goodbye and good night. Bye.